I was just thinking about how you are like a whale. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Chi Life. I know it's a bit cryptic, but it will make sense as we get into it. Okay, so if you've been watching this channel for a while, watched a few of the videos, from time to time you may have heard me make references about the place where I live at the moment. The vlog's been going for quite a while, so I haven't always been living here while the vlog's been going, but certainly for the last 2 years I've been living in one place, and I was living here previously at one point while this channel's been active as well. So I've probably made references to it, and I don't think I've explained too much about it, but it is an interesting place to live. It's a interesting mix of things because there's quite a few people who just live here. They're residents here, like myself, and we get on with our lives and do different things here. But it's also kind of a retreat center where people come for retreats. There's also people who just come for short-term stays, and there's lots of teaching venues in this place, so which is great for people doing retreats, but it's also great for just teaching community classes and things like that, and I do some of that as well. So yeah, I haven't maybe explained too much about the place, and I wonder actually at some point it might be a good vlog to make at some point, to maybe take people on a little bit of a tour, and I can show you around, and so you can see what this place is like. So maybe if you're interested in that, maybe put a comment in the below if you'd like me to make a vlog about this place that I live, so you can understand a little bit of what I'm referring to sometimes. But anyway, because of this nature, the nature of this place, well, again, nature, that's surrounded by nature, that's another cool thing about it. But because of the way there's different people who are here for different reasons, and people come and go for different reasons, it is quite an unusual place to live, and you meet some unusual and interesting people. And one of the things that happens here is, because it's, as well as people living here, it's also a retreat center, they have people who come and volunteer, and they live here and they enjoy the things that are going on here, but as part of that they do a little bit of work each day, so that they get free accommodation and things like that. And they tend to come and go. They're here for a few weeks or a few months, and then they move on and so on. And so there's constantly people moving through. And so this bit about, I was just thinking how you were like a whale, this came from an interaction with one of these volunteers. And fairly young girl, by young, she's an adult, but young, traveling, she's from somewhere in Europe, and traveling around New Zealand, decided to spend some time here. And as part of her volunteering was doing cleaning of some of the different facilities. And also as part of this, because she gets involved in the things here, had come to some of the classes that I teach for the community and different events. So we'd had a little bit of contact with each other. I had never really talked to her much before though. But anyway, one day we were in one of the kitchens here, and she had been doing some cleaning, and then she sat down to have a cup of tea. And I was sitting down, either eating or something, down the table, a little bit away from her. And she was just sitting, drinking her cup of tea. And then she just looked up and said, "I was just thinking how you were like a whale," which I thought was quite a humorous observation. It was like, a whale? A whale, okay, that's interesting. And so she did elaborate a little bit, and she said, well, in a good way, it's like you're like calm and peaceful, and you're big, and you're like water. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I can see how you would think I'm like a whale. But it was an interesting analogy to bring out, and also just so abruptly. There was no context to a conversation beforehand. It was just like the start of the conversation. I was just thinking how you're like a whale. And so yeah, I found it quite humorous. But at the same time, I do recognize the way we can think like this, and also this can be beneficial sometimes to have this way of thinking, and it's something that we use within Qigong quite a lot within different practices. As I'm sure many of you watching the vlog are aware, a lot of different Qigong practices come directly from observing nature and different things around us, and then the qualities of those things within nature, and often living things. Sometimes we do things where we're copying things from trees and plants, but often also copying animals. And there's different layers to what we get from those practices where we're copying animals. Some parts of it are, physical, very clearly physical, activating different parts of our body, working muscles and tissues, and then affecting our organs in different ways. There's also more subtle qualities that come through as well that affect, the quality of the energy. So it's not just about specific parts of our body, but the subtle characteristics of our energy that come through. And this can be quite noticeable if you do a movement where it's just like, I'm doing this movement, or you do a movement thinking about or aware of the connection between that movement and a certain animal. And it makes subtle changes to your energy, the way it flows, the qualities that it has. Now, I'm not actually familiar with any whale Qigong. Some of the animals that we more commonly work with are ones like tigers and snakes and dragons and cranes and leopards, and these five, certainly within Long White Cloud Qigong, we use a lot. But then there are others that can come in sometimes, like monkeys and ducks and all sorts of different animals. And part of it is just copying movements, but part of it is also bringing through these other qualities within our energy. And so, sometimes when we're doing these practices, it's helpful to think of us not just as doing a movement, but as becoming like that animal. And it can help us to embrace and embody those qualities of energy and get the benefit from them more thoroughly. Also, as we go through our lives, historically a common practice was for people to, in modern times, people often refer to it as sort of like having a spirit animal, that sort of shapes your qualities overall. But certainly to have some kind of animal symbolism or imagery that you identify with, and not just within an individual practice, but allow yourself to really embody the positive qualities of that animal. And this can actually act in a more broad way through your life, to give you some guidance and to shape the way you live your life as well. So really interesting the way that this does come in within different Qigong practices. And I just thought it was so humorous to have this abrupt interaction where she was essentially working with the same principle in her own way of thinking, and recognizing for herself that she thought, I am like a whale. And I can see it. I can see where she got those ideas, the way she explained it. Yeah, it makes sense. It's probably not the first animal that I would think of for myself, but I can say, I've got some whale qualities. Fair enough. Interestingly, on the topic of whale Qigong, like I mentioned, I'm not actually familiar with any specific whale Qigong practices, but I did within one of the community classes I was running a little while ago. I teach all sorts of things within those classes. I'm doing them not as part of my formal teaching, I suppose, but just as a way to connect and offer things to people around me. And so it's often not super structured. It's often, just choosing different topics, different practices that we work with. And sometimes as part of that, I ask people who are there, so do you have any requests, anything you'd like me to focus on in the session? And I'll take the things that people are interested in and put that together within the session that we're doing. And I did a few months ago actually have someone who said, I would like something with whales. And even though I don't know any specific whale Qigong movements, I did manage to weave the whale influence into the practices that we did that day. So that was kind of fun. All right, anyway, a little bit of a different vlog. Hopefully something interesting or humorous there for you. I look forward to seeing you in another one soon.